terrific. I'd love next for you to know a little bit more about the judges. I am an executive coach and care a lot about ethics and culture and how leaders can lead, and work with Leon at the Bentley Center for Business Ethics. And Leon, you might want to go next.
Thank you. I'm currently the chairman of the advisory board for the Hoffman Center for Business Ethics at Bentley University, but began my career as a general surgeon at an academic medical center in Boston, and became their chief compliance and privacy officer and developed their compliance and privacy programs, and have since retired from doing all of that, and now just do my Bentley work and hang out in Massachusetts.
Shivani or Preston, who's next?
Sure, I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Shivani Nag, and a little bit about myself. I'm located right now in Sacramento, California, a little earlier in time zone for me. And I, however, went to Loyola Marymount in LA to get my undergrad back in 2004, I think. And I used the Jesuit transfer network to get from Loyola in LA to Fordham University in New York, and I went to grad school there. And I have been in your shoes. I was a participant back in 2006 with the grad school team, and so I feel like I know what you may be thinking and feeling, and all the preparation that you went through. So kudos for doing that, especially during the pandemic. It's a lot to kind of take in and present yourself virtually. So you're already doing a great job by being here and participating. And yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. My background, really quick, is in management consulting. And so I ended up focusing on taking ethics and kind of evolving it into change management at different business levels. And so the connection point there is, once you identify an issue at an organizational level, then how do you help people change through that and really change their behaviors and their mindsets? And that's how my career kind of took off from being a participant and moving on through consulting after that. So
Thanks,
great to meet you, and good luck today.
Thank you. Preston?
First of all, Gail and Leon, I'm just curious, do you know Charles Nickerson from Fidelity? He's very, I guess, active in the Bentley community out there.
I do not.
Okay, well, I'll make sure to pass his name to you guys. But I actually met him, going into my story, as I spent the last 15 years working with multinationals and government in China. And ethics was the one class at Boston College that left a really deep impression on me. And I actually help people understand the very difficult cultural balance between ethics and culture, and how a lot of the Western ways that we see things are not full picture, and then how do you execute on the ground with these things in mind. So one of my most recent clients that you guys may be familiar with is Wework. So I got to help them hire a lot of their country heads and deal with the way they successfully or unsuccessfully deal with how they operated in China.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So now we're going to just cover a couple of things before we actually start. And I need to read you something that you already know, but I need to do it anyway as part of our process. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges, which reminds me, we don't know who you are as a team. We know that we're supposed to be the Robin Hood executive suite, but I don't know who you are, representing. So who are you?
We'll be
talking to us.
We'll be going around the presentation, but we're essentially another consulting company called RAM Consulting.
Okay, so you're a consulting group.
Yeah.
Okay, we just needed to clear that up. All right, good. So please make sure everyone knows who you are and that they are before you begin. You have 25 minutes with a 5-minute cushion to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. During this time, the teams will not be interrupted. When you're finished, the judges will ask you questions for 20 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and the judges are to stay in character. After the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside the role playing. Important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, they should be described in simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religion or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness. During this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. I'm assuming that you all are going to have some kind of timer that you keep for yourselves so that you know when your time is up. But I also will be keeping time. And sadly, I have the duty, if you exceed the 25 plus 5, to ask you to stop at that moment that it's 30 minutes, just so you know. We're going to go into the Q&A after you do that, and we'll do it in a fashion that each judge will ask one question, and then we'll do a kind of round robin during our time so that it won't be just one judge at a time. And we wish you luck. Are there any questions?
Yes. Will you be providing with us like a 2-minute countdown or something like that as it gets closer to the 25 plus 5?
Do any of you have phones to know? I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to break the flow of what you're doing. I would advise that you all, if you have cell phones, just quietly set it to the, maybe set it to 20 so you have a sense of knowing that you have, 5 to 10 minutes left. Will that work for you? Or do you not have anything with you that can help you with that?
I think we all can all do it individually. Yeah.
I think it's unfair to interrupt when you're in the middle of making your final whatever. I just don't want to ruin your flow of being who you are.
Oh, I was just suggesting that you could, you don't have to unmute yourself. You would just be able to go in the chat and say 2 minutes, but it's no problem. We all have our own individual timers.
Okay, that's great. All right, so when you tell me that you're ready, I will start the timer.
Do I have sharing capabilities?
Of course you do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Is everyone able to see our screen? Okay, great. All right. Yep, we are ready.
All right, I'll wait until you start.
June 12th, 2020. A date very vivid to trading platform Robinhood. 20-year-old Alexander Kearns took his own life last June after noticing that he supposedly lost $750,000 on a risky bet using Robinhood. An article by CBS stated that Robinhood had granted Alex approval to buy and sell options even though he had a limited exposure to trading. Alex tried reaching out to Robinhood by sending an email, but received none in response. But why does this matter? Alex took his own life without knowing the number of risks involved with trading options. A company's mission statement that is to democratize finance for all failed to provide proper information of the risk involved with trading to a participant of the democracy. As the accessibility of the stock market rises with just a few taps from your smartphone, providing proper information to make use of the accessibility arises within trading platforms like Robinhood. In recent years, the use and accessibility of trading platforms has increased significantly, specifically for trading platforms like Robinhood, who have seen a drastic rise in 13 million users in 2020. Especially throughout the pandemic, many individuals have sought accessible ways to raise their wealth and financial standings. Thus, COVID-19 has served to further augment the number of individuals using these platforms. Financial management and investment applications serve as a tool to aid many people that are beginning to trade, but often lack information beyond a basic level of application. Investing today can begin with just a few taps of your smartphone. However, the increase in accessibility comes with a price. Many investors beginning to trade, including myself, have lost plenty of money due to misleading information found on social media platforms and advice from unprofessional advisors. These instances raise an ethical dilemma for trading platforms like Robinhood. Is it acting responsibly by exposing its users to high levels of financial risks? My team, Rand Consulting, consisting of Thomas Ferris, Michelle Doe, myself, Arul Mullen, and Rachel Walmart, will begin this presentation by providing background and context of current company information. We will then analyze the various ethical, legal, and financial dimensions associated with the dilemma Robinhood needs to consider, and then we'll recommend specific solutions that make Robinhood a more investing-friendly app. The sudden rises in the GameStop stock and Dogecoin cryptocurrency have pushed Robinhood into the spotlight of scrutiny and criticism from various legal entities and investors and competitors. Its halt of other meme stocks like AMC, Express, and BlackBerry have exposed its unprepared financial standing. In a recent Wall Street Journal article, journalists Peter Rudiger and Orlem Caffrey stated that Robinhood had to raise over $3.4 billion in emergency cash to support the sudden rises of multiple stocks and cryptocurrencies. How was Robinhood able to raise such capital in such short notice? This question became apparent as it exposed Robinhood to operation to its users.
So far, we've seen how these events can have a significant impact on Robinhood's public perception. But specifically, why does this matter, and what underlying issues or areas of improvement do they present for Robinhood? The answer to this question primarily lies in Robinhood users' demographics. The average user on the trading platform tends to be on the younger end of the spectrum. With the average age coming at around 27 years old, these users are often a member of the millennial generation. Additionally, these individuals are typically placing their first trade on the platform. And while their ambitions to bolster their current financial standing are noble, the average user is objectively considered inexperienced in the realm of investing and trading. And as a rule illustrated above, the negative consequences of trading risky financial securities for some inexperienced investors is quite large. Hence, the company is faced with the following ethical dilemma. Is Robinhood acting responsibly by allowing these new traders to expose themselves to high levels of financial risk? The origin of this ethical dilemma stems from a conflict in Robinhood's mission and the needs of an experienced user base on the application. Robinhood's goal is to encourage as many users to join the application as possible in order to democratize finance for all. However, as more inexperienced users enter the application, is it fair that Robinhood allows these users to expose themselves to financial risk without the proper knowledge to invest while profiting off of the transactions? And to what degree is Robinhood responsible for educating these users? On one end of the scale, Robinhood could provide its users with little to no information in order to maximize accessibility to the platform at the expense of user welfare. And on the other end of the scale, Robinhood could provide users with advanced or technical information that would maximize user education, but could also increase the complexity of the platform at the expense of accessibility. We believe that the answer lies somewhere in the middle, where Robinhood provides users with a balanced amount of information. And this means that Robinhood would be able to consider the welfare of its users while minimizing the barriers to access the platform, resulting in a fair and balanced approach to the ethical dilemma.
In order to better understand the ethical dilemma, it's important to analyze the problem financially, legally, and ethically. We will begin by analyzing the financial and business implications associated with the presented ethical dilemma. Robinhood's business model currently plays multiple roles in the events surrounding the ethical dilemma. With the recent events mentioned previously, it is evident that Robinhood is unprepared to handle volatility on both a macroeconomic and non-macroeconomic level. Also, the implementation of trading securities during the recent stock pump stems from Robinhood's barriers to raising excess capital in these unprecedented times. Furthermore, as Robinhood is a commission-free platform, it must rely on outside investor support when in need of emergency funds. When considering the financial implications of a presented dilemma, it is important to understand how your company makes its profits. With a valuation of almost $6 billion, many wonder how Robinhood, a commission-free platform, is generating its revenue. Payment for order flow, earnings from rebates, interest from idle cash, and margin lending through premium services are the four main ways in which Robinhood makes money. But Robinhood's primary revenue stream is through high-frequency trading and payment for order flow. For context, Robinhood generated $682 million in payment for order flow revenue in 2020 alone. Order flow is a controversial practice used by many commission-free online brokerages. Essentially, while they are listed to be commission-free platforms, companies like Robinhood generate money from processing trades through behind-the-scenes parties that provide the other end to the trade. This is how many investors trading on commission-free platforms picture the trading process. They often think that once they place an order through Robinhood, their money is directly placed into the market or the company they choose to invest in. But in reality, this is not how the trading process works. What happens is Robinhood sends its users orders to market makers such as Citadel and 2 Sigma, who then execute the trade. They do this in order to allow users to receive better execution quality and better prices. But there's been a recent SEC filing regarding this matter, which will be further discussed in the legal section. Once this process takes place, the revenue from these transactions is what makes up the majority of Robinhood's revenue, allowing them to cover the costs of their business operations and continue offering commission-free trading to its users. Essentially, even though Robinhood doesn't charge commission, the more transactions that are placed on the application, the larger amount of revenue is being generated from payment order flows. So now that we have established how a commission-free platform like Robinhood is making money, a new question arises. How does Robinhood's business practices contribute to the identified problem? Robinhood's business practices may be in conflict with how a brokerage firm should react to volatile situations in terms of its customers. During the GameStop stock squeeze, Robinhood managed to raise $3.4 billion in emergency funds. While this was impressive, it demonstrated how ill-prepared Robinhood was for unprecedented situations. Robinhood's ability to raise capital last minute exposes the firm to additional financial risk by placing the firm in a situation in which it would have to rely on external means of capital, debt, and equity financing without fully analyzing the impact of the firm. Beginner investors, as stated earlier, are not fully aware of how Robinhood operates on an investment transaction. Robinhood's gamification strategy to attract new users and make it seem easy to invest hides the risks involved in the certain trading process. By not explaining this process, Robinhood is reducing the opportunity to create trust with its current and potential investors. As a result, Robinhood will be subject to further financial risks if they continue to fail to anticipate unusual market conditions. These financial risks aren't just related to the firm's current overall weak financial standing, but also to its brand image.
The company's sudden capital raise of over $3 billion has pushed it into the spotlight of scrutiny from various financial regulatory entities such as the SEC and current and potential investors. With Robinhood being an established broker, it has a responsibility to advise its investors with proper investment strategies that will be the least risky. Its current practices have adversely affected its image, as many existing and potential investors are deterred by the negative press and skepticism surrounding Robinhood's operation. This in turn means that Robinhood could be hit with huge financial obligations and fines from legal actions in the future for providing misleading information and inaccurate information about how it operates, thus putting the firm at financial risk. It also utilizes its platform to be an intermediary between an investor and securities exchange entities like Citadel. So communication needs to be emphasized within the company. To prevent any further regulations in the future, Robinhood needs to be able to communicate and show where and how invested money is being processed. Investors need to be aware of how their investments are being processed so that they can prevent events like the GameStop squeeze from happening again. But what seems to be a bigger communication problem for Robinhood is the lack of customer service. Robinhood investors are only able to access customer service by sending an email. This is an ineffective and insufficient way to communicate for the existing 13 million users. Especially given Robinhood's notorious long response times, frustrations arise within customers as they can't share their concerns and receive feedback within a certain time. With the user growth rate it's witnessing, failing to scale up its customer service has increased costs for Robinhood, and its inability to meet customer demand has added to its negative customer perception. On one of the effects pertaining to the business implications of the ethical dilemma is negative customer perception. The majority of Robinhood's current demographic consists of young and inexperienced users. This means that most users are not even aware of various risks and costs associated with certain investment decisions. Prior to the events surrounding the problem, users saw Robinhood as a trustworthy platform they could grow their individual financial standings with. But now, investors are more skeptical and wary of Robinhood after its user after its various encounters with legal entities. Additionally, there are business implications as an effect of certain ethical and legal concerns that will be mentioned in further sections. On the legal side, Robinhood faces fees and fines as a result of regulations that aim to benefit customer experience. Robinhood's failure to meet certain regulations pertaining to customer safety and experience will cost the firm a lot of money. Additionally, restructuring the application to meet legal standards will add on to the existing fees and fines. On the ethical side, the costs associated with it pertain to restructuring business practices to meet ethical demands of investors.
Thanks, Arul. I will now be discussing the legal side of our ethical dilemma. First, I will be highlighting some of the current laws and regulations that pertain to this ethical dilemma. And then next, we will examine some of the legal cases that are involved. Finally, Thomas will discuss how Robinhood can anticipate future regulations and ensure that they are operating not only legally, but more ethically in the future. So the first regulation that I think it's important to highlight here is SEC's Regulation Best Interest, or RBI. As the name suggests, this regulation aims to protect the best interest of retail investors by providing brokers with a code of conduct. The relevance of this regulation to Robinhood's operation is twofold. It will require them to operate in a certain manner when it comes to providing information about their operations, as well as in any educational tools that they provide. Prioritizing the best interest of their users by providing clear information creates a healthier relationship between Robinhood and its users. Next, we have Dodd-Frank 984, which further specifies that companies like Robinhood need to be transparent in the information that they release. Further, this information needs to be accessible and understandable for the general public. Your platform can maintain this transparency in two main ways: providing educational information, especially on investment risk, and informing users on Robinhood's revenue streams and the way that they execute transactions. The final regulations that I would like to highlight are SEC's Rules 605 and 606, which mainly concern trade execution quality. As Michelle mentioned earlier, payment for order flow rates are one of Robinhood's primary sources of revenue, and those rates are directly affected by execution quality. By informing their users of this connection, your platform will be able to provide more support, especially for the beginner investors who may not know to seek out this information from a different source. This all ties back into Regulation Best Interest, as compliance with Rules 605 and 606 will ultimately be in the best interest of both Robinhood and its users. The laws that I have just discussed are all important, especially after Robinhood's recent SEC filing as of December 2020. Your company was charged with misleading customers about revenue sources and failing to satisfy duty of best execution. These accusations stemmed from the concept that Robinhood is commission-free, which is technically true. However, the company has been executing trades at less than optimal levels in order to increase their profit on each transaction through the order flow rates that we've mentioned. According to Joseph Sansone of the SEC, Robinhood has failed its duty financially to their customers by doing this. Overall, the SEC filing used Robinhood as an example to demonstrate the importance of being transparent with revenue streams, as well as trade execution quality, so that users can make fully informed investment decisions. Ultimately, the SEC wanted to send a message to brokers that they needed to prioritize the awareness and safety of their users. In the future, Robinhood should aim to be ahead of this curve in terms of prioritizing the well-being of its user base.
And the SEC filing isn't the only pending case with Robinhood. The Massachusetts Securities Division filed a similar complaint against your firm. However, the complaint noted several different breaches of security regulations. This included aggressive tactics to attract new, often inexperienced investors, the use of gamification to encourage and entice continuous repetitive use of the platform, and a breach of fiduciary conduct standards as a broker. This complaint also cited the application's specific use of reward programs and user interface design as evidence for these regulation breaches. And the specific court case was one of the first cases to use the term gamification as a means to scrutinize Robinhood and other trading platforms. And shortly following the Massachusetts Securities Division, several class action lawsuits were filed, and a congressional hearing was held to examine Robinhood's actions surrounding the ethical dilemma. In both cases, lawmakers scrutinized Robinhood's use of gamification and business practices. And in the congressional hearing, one lawmaker specifically called for regulation and transparency regarding the meaning of zero commissions. In many cases, inexperienced investors associate zero commission trading with even zero cost or risk. And given the timing and current nature of these events, no specific legal regulation has been enacted yet. However, these few instances are a sign that lawmakers are catching up with fintech companies. And as lawsuits and other legislation continue to change from state to state and on a federal level, the GameStop event has shown lawmakers that increased regulation and government involvement in fintech and other trading platforms may be necessary. And there are three specific points that are projected to potentially serve as the basis for future securities regulations. The first of which is transparency, entailing how trading platforms make and spend their money within their business practices and strategies. And this can also refer to the additional costs to customers aside from just commission fees, for example, data privacy. The second of which being gamification, referring to the design and manner in which investments and securities are presented on trading platforms, as well as aggressive tactics used to attract new customers. And the third point is information, referring to the education of the customer base in terms of different classes of security risks, trading basics, and options trading. And while it's uncertain whether these points will yield future regulation, a successful solution or recommendation will not only consider the relevance of existing laws, but also account for these points that may serve as legal liability in the future. And although we anticipate new regulations in the future, it isn't technically legal for Robinhood and other trading platforms to allow new inexperienced traders to expose themselves to high levels of financial risk. However, regardless of the legality of these actions, it's important to analyze the various ethical principles that play a role at hand. One of these principles is fairness. And this topic was briefly discussed in the beginning of the presentation when analyzing the origin of the ethical dilemma. As we saw earlier, this principle is largely relevant in relation to the conflict between the average user's best interests and Robinhood's mission of accessibility. Robinhood's goal is to democratize finance, and this implies encouraging as many users to join the platform and place trades on the application, regardless of their experience level. And on the other hand, as more inexperienced users engage with the application and expose themselves to varying levels of financial risk, the balance between these 2 points begins to shift. And as we've seen from recent events that are role described in the beginning of the presentation, we would argue that Robinhood is slightly favoring democracy and accessibility over the interest of the user. And even though Robinhood may not legally be obligated to warn or educate users on investment risk or trading basics, providing users with these tools and information could be a fair solution to balance customer best interest and accessibility. However, trust and transparency also play critical roles as ethical principles in the dilemma. This is mainly seen in how Robinhood presents information to users and how this affects the relationship between the firm and the customer base. This is where the application's design comes into play. Gamification has a heavy influence on user decision and behavior. And if Robinhood is encouraging and enticing customers to place trades on the application that maybe they wouldn't normally do, it may be considered a tactic to remove user autonomy, which ethically isn't necessarily trustworthy or transparent to the user. And these decisions surrounding the ethical problems and various principles above all have effects on the welfare of users and Robinhood's concern for others. These actions can create physical consequences for various stakeholder groups that Robinhood is associated with.
There is tangible harm concerning the welfare of both Robinhood and its users through this problem. The harm for investors is the loss of money and even the loss of life. Again, the user demographic of Robinhood consists of young and inexperienced investors that are more susceptible to misleading information that can be conveyed by various social media platforms and unprofessional investing advisors. With no full understanding and exposure of how stocks work, investors are putting themselves in situations that can lose them tens, hundreds, and maybe thousands of dollars. Additionally, the lack of communication with the Robinhood due to lackluster customer service support can cause stress and anxiety, which can lead to other situations of self-harm, as is seen with Alexander Kearns. Misinformed trading strategies have even cost some users their lives. The tangible harm to Robinhood is the negative reputation it raises and the monetary loss it can face as a result of inexperienced investment decisions. The SEC filing and GameStop short squeeze exposed its weak financial standing and its revenue stream to users. Users are now not able to trust and rely on Robinhood to process their money. Additionally, the legal regulations that may result from this problem will increase costs for Robinhood that could create loss in the future. When considering what is ethically defensible solution, it's important to assess the reasoning behind an action. Robinhood's goal to democratize finance for all and making trading available to all levels of experience, especially beginner investors, has allowed you to format the infrastructure of your app in a very easy to use and accessible way. However, the gamification of your platform does not help beginner investors understand the various risks and certain strategies associated with investing. Your goal emphasizes responsibility, but your current features and actions shy away from informing the full risks of trading. Beginner investors are not presented with the necessary information about the risks associated with certain investment decisions. That is why our recommendations shift the interests of both Robinhood and investors and focus on the transparency, fairness, and autonomy. This includes increasing user awareness and regarding business practices, creating a fair balance between users' best interest and Robinhood's mission, and reducing gamification to restore user autonomy and prevent misinformed trading strategies. These responsibilities highlight the concern of welfare for both parties. As a result, there are a number of physical benefits for both Robinhood and its users from an ethically acceptable solution. Users can benefit from the greater transparency and educational tools. Informed consumers will be able to make better investment decisions that bolster their financial standing. The confidence of users will rise and in turn encourage users to repeatedly trade on the application in an ethical manner. Robinhood will benefit from its new position as a beginner-friendly app relative to the market and its competitors. The company can build a trusting relationship with its users that increase positive customer perception regarding the application.
Upon evaluating the business, legal, and ethical aspects of the dilemma, we've identified a few potential solutions. Through the specific recommendations that we'll be providing, our overarching goals will be to reconnect and engage with Robinhood's users, renew the design of the application to be a better fit with the addressed ethical concerns, and redefine your brand in the eyes of your users and the general public. The first proposed solution features building awareness within the app and including an accessible educational platform. Creating easy to access and informative lessons on risk and trading mechanisms within the application will allow users to educate themselves prior to placing trades. Competitors such as TD Ameritrade have implemented educational resources and videos into their business model in order to make the platform more interactive and a greater asset to both the company and the customer. On the other hand, as displayed on the right, while your company has recently released Robinhood Learn on your website, and while providing these resources is a step forward, many users are unaware of these initiatives because they're not available within the app. Furthermore, your company should implement certain requirements for educational certifications or checkpoints before placing orders for riskier investments such as options. Doing so would protect Robinhood legally from certain restrictions that prevent beginners from participating in options trading, as it is against the law to do so as a first-time trader. And from a financial perspective, this will also provide a cushion for Robinhood's current capital structure, as increased informed users will lead to less volatility for the company's financial health. And another solution we have identified is strengthening customer relations. As mentioned earlier, Robinhood's current customer system is lackluster, which prohibits your users from obtaining any time-sensitive information needed in regards to the execution of trades and overall questions and concerns pertaining to the app. This is especially problematic because there have been numerous reports of the app crashing frequently, removing the opportunity for users to make up for loss or process transactions in a timely manner. Hence, we believe that establishing a strong, responsive, and interactive customer service system will in turn restore and further develop a user-friendly reputation for your company.
The next aspect of our recommendation is rethinking the application's design. Particularly, we want to examine how Robinhood can alter its app design in order to balance the best interest of its users and rebuild its brand image. With gamification lawsuits underway, it would be in the best interest of Robinhood to decrease gamification and focus their incredible design efforts on educational tools. This will in turn have a positive impact on both Robinhood users, as they will be encouraged to make smarter investment decisions based on facts rather than be influenced by the gamified interface, further improving the user autonomy. Furthermore, Robinhood can also restructure its in-app rewards to fit the same principle. Currently, the reward system is referral-based for customer acquisition purposes. But by repurposing the rewards feature to be targeted towards education, We believe that Robinhood will ultimately retain more of its users long-term and decrease the possibility of future legal action surrounding these free stocks. We believe that these 4 solutions are the most effective from a business, ethical, and legal perspective. In terms of business, this will ensure Robinhood's long-term success by redefining the platform's reputation as being supportive, educational, and user-friendly. From a legal standpoint, we aim to address the current legal issues we mentioned, such as gamification and transparency, protect the best interest of our users, and also get ahead of the curve in anticipation of future regulations. Finally, the company can act more ethically by prioritizing fairness and transparency, which will ultimately establish a sense of trust between your app and its users.
In this presentation, we stated the ethical problem that needs to be addressed by Robinhood. Is it acting responsibly by exposing its users to high financial risk? We began our analysis of this problem by mentioning key background information that stated the suicide case of Alexander Kearns, the SEC filing, and the recent GameStop and Dogecoin short squeeze. We mentioned the relevance of the news and a general solution that Robinhood needed to implement to better its user base and itself. Then we presented the business implications that would be affected by the various financial, legal, and ethical dimensions. We concluded the presentation by recommending solutions that would directly address the problem and improve Robinhood's business operations as a whole. To repeat, it's important that Robinhood provide its users with a balanced amount of information that benefits Robinhood's operations and customer education and financial standing. We thank you for your time and consideration and will now take the opportunity to ask if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. And you all did it with a minute to spare, so that's impressive. The way that we will go through this is to ask you, hopefully, do you want to take down the screen sharing so we can see you all? That would be great. Thank you. So we're going to ask as many questions as we can, which means we need to keep our questions short. I'll start by asking, establishing fairness is one of the most difficult things that any company can do in terms of the balance you're talking about. Could you address for us how you're recommending our C-suite get at the heart of fairness?
Yeah, I think I can elaborate a little bit here. The way that we present fairness in terms of a solution for Robinhood is balance. We have accessibility on one end, and on the other end, we have customer interests. And accessibility is an essential portion of fairness because we want as many people to have access to the financial realm as possible. But on the other end, we also want to make sure these inexperienced users are protected. We want to make sure that they have a fair opportunity to participate in the marketplace with a proper amount of information. So yes, determining that balance, that exact point in between is going to be difficult. But I think to answer your question, it would be a little bit better maybe if the scale is tipped toward consumers' best interest. So while we achieve that balance to maximize accessibility, our goal would be to place the consumer's interest a little bit above that of accessibility. So balance is important, but at the same time, in order to make sure that we're covering ourselves ethically, legally, and from a business standpoint, we want to tip that scale up a little bit on the business side.
Who will go next? The judges need to unmute.
I can, so all of this is interesting, but from what you're describing, there is a significant investment, not just in hiring new people for customer service, but a significant investment in technology, in designers and interface designers and programmers. How do we justify that kind of outlay I mean, I understand what you're saying. I understand the argument for it, but do you have some sense of what the size of the investment is that it would take to get where you're describing?
Yeah, I can answer this question. So I think it's not investing in restructuring the design currently. It's more shifting the purpose of what it's investing in currently. So it's a user platforms, as stated, is very gamified to not explain the certain risks associated with trading. So it has its max design capabilities. Now it's just important that Robinhood restructure the way it's presented and kind of take some of that to make the customer service more accessible and easy to use for customer concerns. So it's more of repurpose and repositioning its existing strategies that allow it to design its app.
But to follow up, to make customer service more responsive, part of the problem, it seems, that is the delay in responding to people is, do you have any sense, is that just because people ignore emails, or is it because there aren't enough people to answer the questions in fast enough period of time? Because if it's the latter, then it does mean hiring a whole new group of people to either answer phones, answer emails, or do chats online.
Yeah, I can take that question. So if we wanted to have a completely live chat function within the app, yes, we may need to hire more people, or we could just repurpose those who are currently on the emailing side of customer service. But I'd also like to mention, because this kind of goes into the budgeting issue you had and the customer service, Robinhood already has an in-app chat function, but it's targeted only at asking questions about how your trades are placed and just more information about the stock you've purchased. But instead, I think that this could be repurposed to also include some customer service features automatically, because it is a fully automated system, and it would likely be a lesser investment to just repurpose this than to completely make a new in-app chat function.
Thank you.
To jump in there a little bit as well, I think I just want to address this as well. There is going to be no way of getting around a significant increase in cost with customer service. Human capital is expensive, unfortunately, with that specific case. But something that's important to mention is that you added over 3 million new users in 2020 alone. And the scaling up of customer service was never done. So we had 3 million new users, and we had no new customer service representations. And the chat feature that Rachel's referring to is a robot on the application. So a scaling up of the customer service aspect of the business is going to be needed regardless of whether or not you're enacting our specific strategies, or if you're just looking to scale up with your business practices. But on top of that, part of the reason why we want to include in-app education is because a majority of the concerns with Robinhood users and their dealings with customer service are just about the basics of investing. We have people who didn't understand that there is an unlimited amount of risk to options trading. And like in the case with Alex Kearns, he sent an email simply on what is going on with my investment. This could have been completely avoided from the get-go if we would have just provided that information from the start. So essentially, each of the solutions that we're recommending play into each other. Scaling up customer service is to help meet current demand levels on one end, and then on the other end, providing in-app education is to decrease the inflow of concerns coming into customer demand as well. So yes, there's going to be a significant upfront capital investment, but it will probably also save you on the back end with other legal liabilities that you're facing, like the big fines with SEC and other regulatory entities.
Also, it's really important to note that it takes 6 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain one. And so the fact that your company is able to retain or to acquire these customers on an immense scale, but people are starting to leave the app and have skepticism towards it, is kind of something to note. And so again, scaling up and restructuring it so that Robinhood is able to retain the existing customers and continue to have that strength in acquiring customers is also important to note. And also in terms of implementing new user interface and user experience into the app. What I mentioned before in terms of kind of redesigning it so that it's similar to competitors such as TD Ameritrade, since they already have existing educational components to it. As I said before, Robinhood released a new platform called Robinhood Learn, which like lists all the investing basics, but it's only listed on their website currently, which means they have the technology and the tools to release that to the public or its, I guess, user base. But they kind of have to like also manage to do that within the app, which we believe is not a huge financial cost in the long run.
Thank you. Shibani?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And I can say that, I was part of a team that was part of developing the learning content for Robinhood Learn. So it's good to know that at least on the website, that's a good start. I know we're likely not as competitive as, say, at TD and some of our other competitors in terms of the content and depth of training that they're able to provide. But it seems to me that, as you mentioned, we have the learning content on our website. We just don't have it accessible through the app. And so wouldn't a quick, easy fix just be that, when they're entering the chat, for example, and they're talking to the robot and they have a question about options or something like that, that we just insert in a live link that takes them to our learning platform, and then they'll be able to view all the content that we've prepared for them so that they are aware and educated around what they're selecting through their app view. It just seems to me like there's just an ability to link the app to our website, which already has the learning content. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great solution, but the problem is a lot of these, like, I feel like a lot of investors are kind of in like the heat of the moment, especially as noted by like the GameStop incident and so on. So Bree mentioned briefly about including certain checkpoints or certifications for risky investments such as options trading, because it's one thing to be able to have like a link that links it to kind of just information on what options trading is, and another to really describe the severity of the risks that are linked to certain investments such as options. So while providing that link is a great start, I think, again, like implementing that kind of checkpoint or certifications is more ethical and also more beneficial in both legal and financial aspects as well in the long run.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And quick follow-up to that too, is that by us offering access through the app to this knowledge on the website, would we not be meeting our legal obligations to provide that information? So we're at least offering it, whether people access it or not is based on their interest and how quickly they're moving on the app and things like that. But would we not be meeting our business requirements or our legal requirements by providing access through the app just by that simple linkage?
I think when I was in the beginning of the ethics session, I mentioned that technically right now, there really is no regulation that says you as a company has to provide users with this information. So if you're asking currently, are you going to meet your legal obligations? The answer is yes, if you do that. However, I think it's important to mention that just providing users with information is different than affecting how they use it and the manner in which it's presented. So if we provide a link, whether it's just through the robo-advisor that you have online with the chat feature, that doesn't guarantee that any user is actually going to physically go to the website. And each of our solutions that we were presenting play into each other. So part of it was restructuring rewards. And we encourage you to restructure rewards to have a more education focus. We want to make sure that customers are actually going in and reading the information, and that reduces our or your legal liability and other financial risk involved as well. You're guaranteeing that people will access this information. And there's no way that we can guarantee that they're using this information by just providing a link. Providing it in app, we can see specific analytics as to how users are interacting with the information. Where are they spending the longest on certain pieces of information that maybe we can improve upon or make more clear? We can also say, hey, you are going through and you finished all of the checkpoints. You've learned how to trade options. You've learned the investing basics. You learned how market makers interact with us as a company. we're going to provide you with a free stock option, the same way that you provide customers with free stock options for referring somebody else as well. So the answer to, should we maybe provide a link in the chat feature? Can you? Is it meeting your legal liability? Yes. Is it effectively utilizing all of your tools and repositioning your application? Not necessarily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Preston?
Do you mind if I ask, sorry, just one more quick follow-up question, and it's my last one, is that I like TD, I know that they offer, it sounds like a very in-depth learning platform. Do you have any analysis around if they follow up with their users to see if their users in fact do use the knowledge to then before they make a decision, or is it also just kind of like an informational access for them, but they don't? Did you find any of that in your research at all?
So I'm not sure, are you aware with signing up for a TD Ameritrade Thinkorswim account? Have you ever signed up for one of their accounts before?
I have not, no.
Okay, so when you're signing up for a TD Ameritrade account, their website actually prompts you, or their application that you download prompts you to view a series of videos, and it goes through each financial asset class, as well as how a basic trade is placed. And the videos are all animated and like very clearly thought out. So technically, they don't have a reward structure for it, but by placing the information right at the beginning when you're accessing your account, it doesn't guarantee, but it's one of those ways that TD Ameritrade is attempting to affect human behavior and get users to be more inclined to look at this information. So technically, no, they don't, but just because TD Ameritrade isn't doing it doesn't mean it can't provide you with a competitive advantage later on down the road with that aspect. But also TD Ameritrade's Thinkorswim platform provides users with a lot of specific recommendations and analyst information. So their trade platform is geared to more, I guess you can call it intermediate user if you're using their Thinkorswim platform, and it provides specific analyst recommendations from various financial firms and TD Ameritrade itself.
Got
Thank
it.
you very much.
Yeah,
Preston?
thank you.
Shivani, you stole my fire. I was like, yes.
Sorry about that.
No. But continue. Okay. I really appreciate that you guys have a mechanism in the certifications or pre-work to make the trades. And I do like the rewards section as well. So you kind of not only care, but you have a carrot and not really a stick, but at least a structure. But my question is, you guys have you been able to find any sort of tech companies or that have forced or implemented some sort of education strategy in the gameplay that you can give us an example of, where people have had to use a solution like this, not specifically having to even be for finance, and we know incentives may work, but what about taking someone down from engaging to have to be certified before they make transactions?
I'm not sure necessarily about transactions, but I guess it's a different concept and a different business too. But in terms of like receiving your Bloomberg market concept certification, like you need to go through each and every module and pass a certain quiz and like actually learn the material in order to receive your certificate. That's the only kind of like similar like finance related platform that does require to pass every checkpoint in order to get to your certification at the end, but it is a different structure and different goal. So I'm not sure if maybe other teammates have.
I think something is important to mention. I was also thinking of the Bloomberg certification, Michelle, but something else that's important to mention is your company specifically values accessibility. So by providing specific checkpoints up front, you may introduce a level of complexity to the application that you're not looking for necessarily, or that doesn't necessarily align with your mission. So yes, by providing checkpoints, you're guaranteeing that people are going to watch these information that are going to be a little bit more knowledgeable on certain aspects, but you're going to kind of infringe upon your mission to democratize finance a little bit, to get as many users in as possible, regardless of experience, which is why we specifically recommended providing users with the tools and then providing incentives in terms of app design and other ways to influence human behavior to utilize this information that way you maintain the accessibility goal of your firm.
Leon, did you have a further question? We're almost running out of time on this, but I want to give you a chance if you do.
I'm just wondering if you're then recommending that we automate things such as, if a charge is made to my credit card that's weird, I get immediately notified something's wrong, and do I want to do something about it? Are you suggesting there be warnings that go out to people upon certain trades at certain levels of experience, or even blocking the trade until some other thing has been satisfied, some other training or some active motion on the part of the user that they know what they're doing and they want to go ahead?
Rach, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that, is it SEC 605 or 606, or is it Dodd-Frank that requires the specific, like, effective and quick transaction? What do you call that? The transaction of settlement.
For the execution quality?
Yeah, for the execution quality.
Yeah, that's 605 and 606.
Right.
You have to disclose the execution quality and how that affects revenue.
Right. So when you're referring to the halting of trades, something, and this is what, when you were dealing with your congressional hearing and when you were dealing with other specific legal repercussions, whether it was the Massachusetts Security Division or other class action lawsuits, they were calling into question a lot of the specific regulation, in the sense that maybe you're not necessarily, by halting trades, you're not executing the trade at the highest quality or effectively. So I guess when you can say automating certain processes by letting customers know about volatile market situations, you can generalize that, but with the amount of different trades going on in certain, like, volatile market situations, I don't think there's one way that you can automate by telling a customer, hey, this is what's going on with your specific trade, because we saw people trading options during the stock market squeeze where they were exponentially increasing the price of GameStop. We saw people who were just buying and selling shares. So I don't think there's one automated message. Maybe what we're saying is you can be a little bit more transparent when you're halting stocks. So yes, you can send a message if you choose to halt stocks, because it technically is in compliance with your specific user privacy agreement and user agreement on the application. And it would probably good to be more transparent as to why. I know with the GameStop incident, you just said, hey, we're halting stops. We're halting any, like, buying or selling of these specific stocks, but you never provided the why behind it, which gave some backlash. So the short answer to the long question is yes, you can definitely automate some of these features to explain more of the why, but you can't provide specific automations for customers regarding their securities that they've personally traded on the application.
Thank you very much. This concludes the Q&A part in our roles. We don't want to cheat you out of giving feedback. So I think it's important at this stage for you to get as much feedback as possible. Our focus is really on helping with ideas that affect your 10-minute and ideas that affect your 90-second. So we'll obviously comment generally on what you did just now, but I think it's really important just to make sure you have whatever the best of our thinking is regarding the two more competitions you have. Is that fair? Okay, good. Preston, would you like to go first in your feedback?
Sure, thanks. I'm not sure how much, and I'm being a little harsh on this, guys, for brevity, but I'm not sure how much a presentation is memorization versus reading. When I'm dealing with presentations, normally we're live and you have a very polished sounding presentation, but normally when I'm speaking with executives, I'm speaking to us, it's a little harder hitting in terms of brevity to each point. Second is, with the point you're making, oftentimes brevity is created through examples. So it'd be great for a lot of your market proof to your hypothesis. If there is market proof to a hypothesis, you can give me clear examples of why this is the better solution. It doesn't obviously have to be in this financial realm, but any example within other businesses that could actually help make the point for you. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
So you were saying to kind of
Actually, I just want you do clarifying, but I just want to make sure that we don't not ruin, we don't want to cut short the time where you get as much feedback from us as possible.
Sure.
So do ask, but I just want to make sure that.
I'm not doing a good example of exactly what I'm saying. Like, I wish I had an example to tell you to prove the fact of what I'm trying to present, as opposed to present a case to you. So when you're presenting your hypothesis of what you think the proof would, what you think the result would be if your solution is implemented, it'd be good if you give me examples within other industries of similar solutions working, and then what the results were, as opposed to trying to explain to me that your solution will work.
Shivani?
Yeah, just so I actually very much agree with that feedback, and so I was trying to prompt by asking for examples from like what did TD do and that kind of thing. But I agree that when trying to convince a board, you're basically trying to say, in my view, what would have been effective is like, hey, this is what TD did, and they did it for 1 year or 6 months or something, and look at all the click-throughs that they got, and look at the great customer service results that they got, and it's not that just because they're doing it you should do it, but it's sort of like a like you're saying, like reputation management. Like that would have been a convincing way for me to think, okay, not only are they doing it, but look at how effective it was, and look at the stats that they were able to show, like maybe from their customer service. I think all of you, first of all, did a great job in presenting the overall case. I felt like the beginning introduction was concise and clear about the 3 components of the presentation. So I think that was very well presented. I also think that in general, the way that you projected your voice and your toning and your pacing was good. There were a couple times where it was moving a little fast, but I appreciated how after you finished your narration, you paused on the slide and gave me a minute to kind of just quickly look at what I was looking at and connect the dots for myself. And then finally, I know I pushed a little bit on, well, aren't we legal? Like, aren't we following, I did that because I wanted to hear your thoughts about the ethical side of it, because this is an ethics competition, right? And I think you did a good job in responding to that. And so I just wanted to kudos, I think you did a good job in giving that perspective. I think from a cost perspective, I don't think that the board would be as convinced, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, as you know, ethics in the world are not prioritized over profit, which is why we're in this position to begin with. And so I think, as Preston had mentioned, if you came with some stats and dollars and examples, it would have gave the board a way to wrap their arms around exactly how much cost are we talking about here. And then that might have helped a little bit. So that's a little bit more feedback. But otherwise, great job.
Leon?
I too agree that I think you did a phenomenal job. I think it was well laid out, and each of you participated and did the presentation. And I agree with Preston and Shibani, trying to give examples of what succeeded in a competitor so that they have the board has some idea. You alluded to, but didn't specifically say, which might be useful, or I was looking for. By doing this, you will get a competitive advantage over those, given all the turmoil in this market and all the distrust that's growing among the public. Doing all these things will give you the competitive advantage you need. And you again alluded to, maybe you could do it in more detail, I don't know, all of the fines and everything you're about to accrue that you will avoid if you do these things. That's the money. If I'm on the board and I have to spend money, one of the things to know is, well, I'm not paying the SEC. And if I have to spend 10 million to avoid 55 million, starts to make sense. But overall, this was a very, very good presentation, and actually made clear to me something I know nothing about. So very well done.
Thanks very much. I think that you all have obviously invested huge time in making this a very cohesive presentation. It's a complicated issue. I think you did a really good job with it. You each have presence and you each speak with authority, and that's really important. Preston made a really good point that would if we were in person, you really would have points taken off for reading. And obviously COVID is a whole other ballgame. But I would suggest for your 10-minute and your definitely your 90-second, that you figure out how to be as in conversational isn't the right word, but you need to be speaking from the heart. You need to be speaking as you would be speaking to each other in making a point. And so that dynamic is going to help your presentation. It'll also help you, as we don't want to memorize everything, it'll help you focus on what is particularly the most salient thing. The key about the 10-minute is to understand, and some teams don't do this. They invest time, and 10 minutes goes by really fast. They invest time in needing to give a kind of summary because they work so darn hard to get the full presentation done, that they I don't want to say waste, but they give up space for what is the most important, which is you have 10 minutes to make an ethical argument, an ethical approach, an ethical persuasion of what is most important. I love what the other judges have said about the power from specificity. I think that really gives you a lot to go on. I also think the point made about creating a value proposition is really important. I mean, one of the things about a company succeeding has a lot to do with its culture. And that didn't really come up. But if you're trying to build trust, you might want to think about what it is that fits into the ethical piece that you have framed so well, that you're going to pull out in the 10 minutes, that you're going to try to get a reaction of awareness, because that's the whole goal in that 10 minutes. They liked you well enough to bring you back. And so you've got an advantage of knowing they're interested, this hypothetical board, and it'll be one person this time for the 10-minute representing that. But play into it, because there's a passion and a something that happens, when we try to sell something as important, even though it's as ambivalent sometimes in terms of balance and fairness and all of that. Think about, and this is why the exercise is so important, because it's designed to help you talk to power. It's designed to help you figure out the most important things you can say to move a needle in a situation that isn't going very well. And obviously for this company, it's got some concerns. One of the things I noticed is that Robinhood has a crypto customer code of conduct for how its users should behave. I didn't see anything online about what their code of conduct is related to their customers. Now, you may have found something, or if you haven't, that may well be something you want to address, because you can't build trust by simply telling the other side that they need to operate in a particular way. So that was all I had to say. But what I wanted to do is ask any of the judges if they have any other feedback, and then I certainly want you all to ask questions in the time that we have left. Any other judge want to say something?
I just wanted to say during the question and answer, you did very well in the fact that you acknowledged that the questions were real. You acknowledged that the problem was real, and then went on to answer in a very organized and knowledgeable way why the position of the board member executive, while is real, your answer will make it better. So I think you did very well with that.
Any questions that you all have of us? We have 3 minutes and 56 seconds left. So what is
Can I
it?
jump in really quick with another comment?
Really
just to
quick,
backtrack
yeah.
the scale. So I think one thing that whenever we're looking at actually hiring people on as a consulting company is really the connection you have with the audience in the room. So I think don't forget to smile and be human and help us understand why when you're speaking, why we should believe you. Like help us understand a little bit about you, let yourself come out, because in the end, I'm trusting you and your company, not just your company.
Bonnie, you wanted to say something quickly too? All right,
No,
we
it's
now
okay.
have,
I'd love to hear the questions coming in for us.
we have probably we probably have almost 10 minutes. So please share with any of us what you think is going to be helpful to you or what you needed further clarification on. And I hate this role of police sergeant, but I just want to make sure you get all that you need to get from us. So take it away, guys.
Yeah, I had a quick question referring to the 10-minute presentation tomorrow. So right now in this 25-minute, we had a lot of time to kind of present the legal business and obviously mainly the ethical aspects of the problem. So tomorrow, since it's a condensed time period, should we still focus on all three or specifically hone in on the ethical section?
You will get points taken away if you do not speak only to the ethics. Let me just quickly read you what the 10-minute is. You've been called back by the company. You gave your full presentation for a second visit. They have asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solutions successfully handle any ethical issues. Now, it's going to be a little weird, so you're not going to talk to the same people. So you're going to pretend, hopefully, that you are dealing with the exact same people that already know everything you had to say today. And all they care about is understanding, can you sell them on your approach? How do you, as we talked earlier, how do you connect with the things that you think are the most important and the feedback that you've been given on that? So please don't, because if you take a couple of sentences to frame it, that's a couple of sentences you don't have to talk specifically about ethics. That would be my feedback.
I would.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, go ahead, Shivani.
Okay, yeah, just really quickly, I'm sure you already know to do this, but I would, in my idea, I would just say, thank you for welcoming us back. As we reviewed yesterday, we talked about legal, we talked about this, we talked about that, and just 30 seconds, throw it in as like a lead-in sentence, and then just say, as we shared with you legally, we talked about a CC from like this time we talked about this, but really what we're here to do is really dive into the ethics part. And then just have that one lead, and I think that would be enough, but it also frames the conversation in a way that doesn't feel weird to you,
Well, the judges are prepared not to judge, what you say or don't say regarding. I mean, I don't disagree with the framing, but it's easy for 30 seconds to become a minute and a half, and it really makes sense that you are very abstemious with a lot of words that have anything to do with anything other than the ethical presentation. If legal affects it or something, fine, but just be really careful because judges do mark off for that.
Okay.
So
Uber judges do.
So my suggestion would be in framing it just to do it in the context of you're in an environment, Robinhood, where your customers and your public are losing trust, don't feel comfortable with you. And it's a matter of trust. And our argument is for the ethical issue of developing trust and confidence, or whatever, and then go into your solution. So you framed that they have a problem, and their ethical problem is people no longer trust them. People are beginning to worry about them. And that's what you're addressing.
And harm is being
Harm is
created.
being done. Great harm.
That was going to be my question. I know with this specific piece, we discussed about 3 overarching ethical principles. We talked a little about fairness in terms of the conflict with its mission, whether it be accessibility and fairness to the user's best interest. And then we also brought up trust and transparency, and then welfare would be like the harm and stuff, concern for others for the company. Is fairness, like, I mean, how did you, like, when you were hearing us speak, when you were hearing these different ethical principles, was there anything that you maybe thought that wasn't, what do you, like, philosophically lined up? Like, is there any like discrepancies that you noticed there that maybe we could improve upon as we expand?
Can trust be an umbrella for the three of them? Can you have that as the frame and pull it in? Because if you talk about each of the three separately, you're likely to go through 8 minutes of your 10. But if you create an umbrella, it's possible that you can get in more and make a deeper point. I don't know.
See,
how
I would agree with that. I think trust is the umbrella for fairness. If you're not fair to me, why would I trust you? And if I'm to trust you, I must think you're fair. I must think you're transparent. I must think you're open, and that I can contact you and you will defend my interest, especially as a fiduciary.
Yeah, I would say if you have a moment, if you haven't already, research trust models, business trust models. The one that I've trained before are, is the person following through? Do they have the skill or like the competency to guide me? And then their intent. Do I trust that their intent is in the right place? And those are the three components of trust as it relates to a business relationship. And that's what oftentimes builds out a mission and a vision statement, and then therefore the values. And so if you can kind of find a way to tie those components in, it would give me, at least as a board member, a chance to say, okay, they've broken down trust in these three components, and that's what builds a business relationship with our clients. So if you could look at a trust model, I think that might reach across.
And the way you sustain that would be through a good culture. So you may be addressing to them also that you believe that that they care about culture, and this will only support their efforts in the culture, even though you have no idea. I mean, it's another way of proving value.
And when you're referring to culture, are you referring to specific company culture, and not just externally how that is viewed to customers, but also internally on like an employee? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
we're talking about the people. We're talking about the people who work there who have an impact on you by virtue of what they do and don't do.
Yeah. So organizational culture, you'll research it too, I'm sure, but there's the mission and values and everything that's above water. That's what people see and hear on a website. And then there's the invisible culture. That's like how you really get work done, how decisions are made, practices, beliefs, perceptions. All those things are kind of the invisible environment of a business. And that's what really drives the way that people make decisions in a business, right? So culture is the visible part, the 20% above water is what people talk about, but it's the underwater currents that inform the way that businesses decide to either go for something like this or not go for it. So that helps a little bit.
And
What else is on your mind?
sorry, go ahead.
No, if you're going to go the culture route, I think a big challenge for that is it's very simply culture is actions and behaviors, right? So what a lot of these companies do is they don't actually have clear parts of their clear rules within their company that prove these actions and behaviors. And that's one of the biggest problems. Wework, like I said, my biggest funnest one, where they're like, yeah, we're all this culture, but the realities are it was a horribly toxic company. So the realities are, if you can say all you want, but if you actually have structures in your company that force or police behavior, those are actually what drive real culture. So you can say all you want, but then when I do these actions, I'm either written up by HR or I'm given something to perform. So you can say changing internal structures that would move the culture in a direction, because transparency, how are we transparent in our organization? How are we, those three things, actually proving them within different parts of our organization, which would result in the external way we treat our customers and our business.
We need to pull out in about 2 minutes because there's another group coming in using this system at 2:45. So is there anything that you did a great job? We're especially concerned about supporting you for tomorrow. So that's why the focus is not on just lavishing you with praise. Anything else that you think is helpful for you for tomorrow?
So just to, oh, sorry, Thomas, were you gonna go? You go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I've had a lot of questions. You go ahead.
No, I was just gonna reiterate on the financial and the legal aspects. So as we kind of, since we're kind of in that platform, in that scenario, so we're gonna summarize. It's important to summarize all, like both of them, but not going to as.
No, it's not important to summarize them.
Oh, it's not?
This-
Okay.
Keep in mind, you've been called back to talk about the ethics only.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you have to assume that that you're pretending that you're talking to the same people. If there is something pivotal that you need to say in finance and legal that's tied to trust, if that's your head subject, or that's tied to what your ethics points are, fine. But you don't need to summarize anything, because we're only asking to hear more about, to more in depth or more information about the ethics piece.
Yeah, Arul, an example. Welcome back, Arul. You're the only consulting company that talked about ethics. I don't understand why. Tell me why this matters. Why we're going to win using ethics. And then you can, that's kind of the question.
Sure. Thank you. I was just confused because I know the financial and legal were important for this round.
Absolutely, absolutely. Unfortunately, we need to end this. If any of the judges have questions of me, I will put my up to I'll put it to, oh, well, it'll go to everyone, but I'll just put my email address in. If anyone has any questions, any of the judges have any questions for me, I'd be delighted to follow up. But I don't want to screw up things for the next group. And okay. Thank you. I think you guys did it. Guys is so ineloquent. I think you, members of the consulting group, did a great job. And
Great
I don't
job.
know if the other judges want to say something quickly and goodbye, but you're.
No,
you're all
thank you. Great job. I appreciated it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. Good luck.
Thank you.
And I
And we
think you'll do
appreciate-
great.
Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, we
Have
really
fun.
appreciate it.